Hello, 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 and welcome back to the RelatePod, a space where we delve into the intricacies of human connection. I am your host, Livi Niyo, and today I'm excited, actually very delighted, to have with me a special couple, dear friends of mine, Tito and Jacky Mungai. They are joining us as we continue a series on parenting teenagers. Welcome to the RelatePod, Tito.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jacky.
Thanks, Livi.
Yes. And Tito and Jacky are parents to a 15-year-old son, 13-year-old son, typical teenagers. So they're right in the thick of things. Tito is a strategy and marketing consultant, and Jacky is a commercial leader for a multinational. And they are completely in the trenches of parenting teenagers. They are relearning how to transition from parenting young boys, children, to now teenagers going into adulthood. And they have been gracious to share with us their journey, their story, the different things that they are going through. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Tito, I'll start with you first. When you hear the term teenager, what came to mind before you became a parent to teenagers?
Thank you, David, for that sort of question. For me, when I hear about teenagehood, a lot of things come to mind is my experiences and then also what is bombarding us in terms of the world. So you then expect a lot of, let me start with the positives. You then see these young humans transitioning into a stage where they're more independent. They sort of start becoming or stepping into their own being. So that's sort of one expectation. The other side, obviously, is what we feel in terms of pressure. You're bombarded with. There'll be the rebellion. There'll be these all cultural influence, and then also sort of common urban myths that it'll be tough. There'll be disconnect. So I think for me, that's how I'd sort of summarize it.
And do you see now that reality as you parent your own boys?
I think
What, from that thought or those thoughts you had about what teenagehood was about and the reality now, are there any intersections?
yes. The intersections that come into mind is one, you find that they are indeed becoming more independent. You can actually see them stepping into their own. The other sort of intersection and expectation is that whole doom and gloom that sometimes as a parent you can feel overwhelmed, but truly yes, like you did mention, it is the trenches, but there's hope for us in the trenches.
Yes.
So it's not all sort of blood and sweat. There's also some tears of joy.
Some
Yes.
light.
And if
Yeah.
I was to add, you know what it says, you walk into this and you hear more negativity than positivity. Our experience hasn't been
Very
negative, you know, because yes, they've transitioned. Yes, we've had to adjust to now parent differently than we were parented. But I wouldn't say, you know, it's been a horrific season. Quite the contrary. I think we've been pleasantly surprised. God has been very gracious towards us because there are elements that surprise us, but we've been able to navigate. You know, there is no war. You know, when you meet us with our boys, we have moments of laughter and then we've got moments of toughness. So it's been a
balance. That's really, really nice.
There's hope.
There's hope. There is hope. And that's why I think these conversations are so important, because sometimes parents are going through difficulty. They say, oh, this is really, really hard. And such conversations can possibly give them some hope. You know, maybe they'll grab an idea that they can try that can make the journey much easier.
Absolutely.
Jacky, if you had to describe the current season you're in with your son in one word, what would it be and why?
For me, it would be adapting. And I would say, because there's no day that is the same. And then the kids are transitioning. They're also not fully in control, because remember, there's hormonal changes. We've seen them grow beard. They didn't know what beard was. We saw our eldest son had hair on the legs, and we saw he refused swimming. So we could tell that they were also navigating this and they
That
needed to adapt
changes.
to the change. And then for us, we needed to adapt to the season so that then we're expecting, we've heard a lot of things from, out there, we've read from, we've seen other parents and their stories. So then we said, how do we do this differently? So it called for adapting to the season and then being relevant in the season so that then we're not those parents who say, but during our time, our kids cannot connect with our time. So I feel like,
a lot of changing. I like the word relearning.
Unlearning and
A lot of
relearning, and changing tact.
Yes.
And then also extending grace to ourselves. And there are times we tell our kids, we actually don't know how to parent you guys. Our time, it was very different. The law was laid and it had to be followed. But then, now we've realized, the more we also confess openly that we actually, guys, don't know. We are going to figure this out together. Gives us permission to be human and to extend grace to ourselves. And then it also gives our kids permission to navigate the season without pressure. And then they know our space is open. They can ask what they are comfortable asking. And then certain things, they will just figure it out, I think, with their friends. Thank God for groups or forums in school where they discuss, the changes, the transitions, through church. So there are all these little communities that are
guarding you and helping you as you navigate.
And they say it takes a village. So adapting for me is the word, because we've genuinely had to adapt and shift and change our styles to really ensure that we're not just, laying hard rules, but we are supporting our children also navigate the season.
That's a really, really good word. Adapting. Now, let's focus on the wins. We said the word out there is that it's very, very negative. It's a difficult season for both the children and the parents. But there are some wins. Like Jackie, you preempted, you said that there's been some good joys in this season. What would you say is an interesting of this stage for you, Tito, with your sons?
I think for me, it's a win, but it's also a challenge on me. And the win is you want your children to grow up to be critical thinkers, to understand the why behind the what they need to do. Therefore, even when you're not there, because they're clear on the why, then they can do the what we want as parents for them to sort of do. So for me, that win is for them to get to that point where they're interested in the why. So for me, that indicates a form of maturity that they're stepping into. So for me, that's a big win, that as long as they understand the why, then we are confident enough that should they move forward in life, they're able to
make the right
choices. So for me, that's a big win I can sort of dial up.
In this season, you're seeing more of the critical thinking coming up in your sons.
Yes.
That's amazing. What about you, Jackie?
For me, the biggest win, I would say, is that our kids can find moments for us to have conversations, and we talk about dating, we talk about typically topics that would have been forbidden during our time. Those are dinner conversations. And there is laughter around, when is the right time to have a girlfriend,
Who's crushing on
who has a crush and why, and I remember there was a time over dinner, one of our sons said, you know what, if I start dating now, first, I risk my heart being broken. I don't want to be heartbroken. I'm too young. Then another time he said, but I'm broke, how will I manage this? So it takes you to the space where you can now start to understand what's going on in their minds. So for me, contrary to what, sometimes they say teenagers, they'll isolate, they lock themselves up. They have those moments where they isolate. One will be playing their games or they'll be in tune with their friends. But then they have this moment when they come to the table and we have these conversations, because I say the biggest win is to be in step with them so that then what is going on in school, what is going on in their lives. And even if you don't give advice directly, because for this stage, the other realization is you don't go telling, so you reference,
Smart
like another
ways.
friend. Yes, you tell stories.
In a way to get what you want to say across.
But then the message with land. And I'll give a good example. There was a time we had this discussion and I asked my son, the eldest who's 15, so do you have a girlfriend? And he says no. Then I asked, how come? So he said, but you told me not to. But you see, I don't remember at any one point saying no. But you can see in all these conversations saying the pros and cons. His takeout was it might not be a
the
good
right
idea
time,
to have a girlparenting now. So
Yes.
of course we were celebrating quietly.
Yes.
But yeah, so that would be one of the
Snake.
wins.
I'm hearing is that even as you're parenting your boys, the relationships that you have with them is still present.
It is.
It's just different,
Yes.
but it's still present. And I think that's something we need to remember as parents is that the
Yes.
dynamic around the parent relationship will shift, it will
Yeah.
change, but that's not necessarily such a bad thing.
Yes.
It can be a good thing as well.
Correct. And I think sometimes for parents, because we all don't know what we are doing, truly. Like, let's start from there. You
really know what we are doing.
We don't know. It's God's grace and God's wisdom that He supplies every day.
Yes.
Why? Because no kid is the same. Even between our two sons, we parent them different because they come out with personalities. And sometimes I feel like today with social media and this competitiveness everywhere, so sometimes as a parent, you can put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect. Your kids are not expecting you to be perfect. They want you to be there.
And their dad.
Correct. And then they want you to create time to really hear them. One of the things we had to shift from and really adapt is how do we hear our children and not interrupt with solutions? How do you sit and just listen? Listen to their perspective and then ask more questions. So why are you doing this?
Curiosity.
Or what do you think? Because that's where you then get to hear how they're processing, how they're thinking, what's going on in their world. But sometimes the default for parents is to come in.
No, that is wrong. That's not how we do it.
So you shut them down without knowing. And the result is they will not be coming to you with their stories. But the more you allow them into that space where they can talk about their day, they can tell you and they try you to see how you'll react to certain things before they tell you big things. And that's what we've seen with our son. Before he tells you big things around his grades, what's happening in school. Nowadays, he self-reports. If something has happened in school, he will be the one to volunteer before we've gotten there. Yeah, so
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's well known that there's always a natural shift during the teen years where peer influence begins to outweigh parental influence. Have you noticed this, Tito? Has this shift, were you able to notice the shift happening where the peer influence was beginning to outweigh your influence as parents in their lives? And how have you navigated it? That you remain the primary in their lives.
So really, as you are asking that question, what came to mind, the shift is very clear in terms of how you influence their choice of clothing. So there was a time when you would buy something and you would love it and you would take it home and by default they would love it. And now that is a risk of you getting heartbroken because it will never be worn. For us, the realization of this shift came in terms of how we then give out in the, let's say, December gift hamper of donating clothes. Just realized just how many new unused clothes we're giving away. So that was the first one, the real visible silent shift. And really, when you then see that shift, it's then influenced by statements of like, yeah, this would look cool. This is what everyone is doing. And really the follow-on question was how to then remain relevant. To be honest, I don't think it's something you can say this is sort of the magic formula in this box. I think what Jackie said, it's just continuously looking for those spaces to connect. And for me, as Jackie was speaking, what also comes to mind is also as a parent not giving up, because in the teenage years, they have a natural tendency of closing themselves in. And as a parent, yes, you're a parent, but you're also human. So you shouldn't look at it as them rejecting you. You just have to remind yourself it's a phase. So today, if I say, hi, how's your day? And you get a statement, good, fine, and they walk away, you suck it in and say, you know what, I'm going back. Yes. And then now maybe next time, don't give a yes or no question. Give one that's open-ended. So it then means that for you to remain sort of relevant, you have to work at it. And also you have to sort of be ready that there'll be moments of rejection, but you just can't give up.
I was going to add something to Tito's perspective. You know what we see as rejection from these teenagers is actually not rejection. It's them trying to look for their own identity. It's them trying to define who they are. So there's pressure from friends to be something else. There's pressure from parents to be something else. There's pressure from what they're learning about who a good Christian is. Because they've not matured well enough to then really determine who is what is where. So you find that it shows up as rejection. But it's as parents, that's what we know, and then you realize actually they want to define how to engage. They want to define what spaces to come into. And then they're very clear what spaces you're not allowed into. So certain conversations, like, when I asked one of my other sons around dating, then he said, Mom, that's snitching on my friends. So you can see that there are conversations they will have that they've put a line and we respect those lines. And then there are conversations we then participate in. And even when we want to offer advice around general topics, we make it a general topic. We know they will draw something out, so that then we're not living in fact, our joke is we need to identify what our life will look like without these children, because they've already now created their space as they're starting to build their own identity. Yes, anchored on Christian values and all that, but saying this is who I am. My fashion, you guys, you're old-fashioned. Sometimes when we go to school, we have to look at how we dress because we may embarrass them, and we will be told, no, don't come to school. So now it's in those little things saying, how do we also work in a way that matters to them so that then we are not invalidating their feelings. So at this stage also, it's important to validate what they feel. And because that's how we show that we care around the stage they're in, how they're transitioning. So if Tito has to wear, to look like a cool dad, he has to step it up. That's right. That's right.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Maybe you guys should do for us cool parents of teenagers what you need to be wearing in this generation.
We've not figured it out. Their fashion changes almost quarterly, so we can't keep up.
I go to the store sometimes and I'm trying to look at kids' clothes. My kids are still young. And then I somehow veer into the section of 14, 13. Yeah. I look at what's there and I'm like, what are they all wearing?
Let me tell you a funny joke. Our eldest has moved into this bell bottom.
Yeah.
They are back.
Yeah.
And then they think it's such cool fashion. So his trousers, when they're being hanged, the nanny is like, whose are these ones for? Because they look bigger than Tito's. And we're like, no, they are for Sean. It's a fashion. But who are we to judge? We are not cool like that.
So his fashion is back. New you're seeing. Yeah. That's interesting. Maybe we can, still on the peer influence, some influences are positive, some are negative. What practical steps have you tried in screening the influences in your son's lives, especially the peer influences?
Maybe let me give the negative one and then you can say what we're trying to do. Because there's this thing for, you go for birthday parties and you find that your friends have better cars, better houses, Today, what are we navigating with our eldest? All of a sudden, our house is not nice. Livi, you've been to our house. Yes. Now, I do agree, it's not the newest in town, but it's for him, it's like, somebody else has a better house. Oh, I don't know. Now, all of a sudden, when the heater breaks down, there's so much noise around the shower. And then he'll make a general statement. Why don't we just move to this place? Why don't we buy this car? And we've been saying, you know what, Sean? There will be people who'll have more. There'll be people who'll have less. Yes. Learn to be content with what you have. Now, we know that a direct influence of peer pressure because he's hanging around maybe friends who have more. He's going for play dates, so he's exposed to more sophisticated things. But the reality is that that's not our priority. And we said with my husband, you know what? They're going to go to school in the same car that they use just so that they realize it won't kill them, And also how we build contentment and gratitude for what you have, as opposed to this pressure now making you invalidate everything you have, that has gotten you to where you are today, So as parents, I think, I don't know whether because that's a real big one with our firstborn today.
So yeah, like Jack is saying, you just step into this scenario where you find a lot of what defines them is from external influences. But the simplest way of sort of trying to put the guardrails is literally almost making them clear that this is the sandbox. You can play in here, but that's it. You can play in here. So there are certain red lines. There is no sleepovers at parties. If it then means mom or dad coming and waiting the car till 10 p.m., we'll happily do that. If the guys are waking up the next day at 7 a.m. for breakfast, we'll drop you. But there is no sleepover. If for example, the new cool thing for teenagers is going to hang out at the mall, we're very clear. As long as there is no parent chaperone, not an older brother, sister, sibling, relative, no. Has to be a parent chaperone, then that's not open. So it's really appreciating that there'll always be these opportunities for them to push the envelope. But as long as you establish that this is the sandbox, play in it as much as you want, but no getting out of it.
I love that analogy of the sandbox. It's so powerful because it means as parents, you've actually taken the time to say, what are our negotiables? What are our non-negotiables?
Exactly.
Yes.
What are our values
Exactly.
as a family?
Yes.
What are the things for which we are not going to accept this?
Exactly.
And what are the things for which, we can try and meet you halfway?
Yeah.
And I think for me, what is speaking to me is a bit of intentionality.
Yes.
Actually, not a bit.
A
A
lot.
lot of intentionality on the side of the parent to sit down and say, okay, I understand this is a stage they are. They want to go and hang out with their friends. But you're not going to sleep over.
Yes.
We're not doing that.
Exactly.
But I can wait for you an extra 2 hours.
Correct.
You have fun.
Correct.
But we are going home.
Correct.
Yes.
And I think in that way, you're protecting them while also at the same time allowing them some freedom. And that's a very key balance. I really love that. And I love that analogy of the sandbox. You can play within here, but outside of this, no.
Yeah.
And that's really practical and very helpful.
Yeah. And another thing that Tito alluded to earlier is also explaining why. What could happen at a sleepover that you don't know? So sometimes our kids are innocent and kids wild over. They want to hang out. When they go for a party, they don't leave the house with they don't leave the house with ill intentions. We are the parents, so we know what could happen. Then they think about hanging with my friends and the fun. So I think we also try to paint what could happen so that then, and we are calling them to that maturity to then say, guys, yes, they're your friends, but we're not in control of that environment. We don't know them. So we try to indicate, things like those. I mean, our son asked, Mom, why can't I use an Uber? We said, you're 15. Why would you be using? Now, we know that there are parents who will allow their kids to go to the mall with an Uber, which is fine. We say no. Why? Because we also know the dangers of a young kid being in an Uber alone. We are in Kenya today. We don't have the level of security and safety that exists in other parts. So we're also conscious about some of those things, and we explain the dangers of that.
I know, but I think for me, my biggest takeaway from that, this practical is, one, establish your values as a family.
Yes.
And then sit down and narrow down what are your negotiables, what are the non-negotiables. It takes a lot of thought, a lot of, back and forth talking about these things. And then being consistent.
I love the consistency part.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yes. That's right. Especially for mom guilt, dad guilt, or parent guilt.
I know.
Sometimes you feel like, okay, maybe I'm being too hard, and you see also, remember, kids can be manipulative.
Very.
So they will sulk. They will be like, oh, they're not talking to you, So then you're like, oh, maybe I'm the bad parent, other parents. So that consistency and doing that, eventually you realize that then they know what to ask for. And sometimes they come to you and say, I know you'll say no. I said, okay. So at least they already start with that because they know what the boundaries are.
Yeah, because I think it's more dangerous if there are no boundaries.
Correct.
That means anything will go.
Anything goes, yeah.
That is scary.
That's very...
We are winding down. What's the single most challenging dynamic right now for you guys as you parent?
I think I'll go first and then I'll let Jackie just chime in. I think for me, the the most challenging bit is how to unlearn what I saw growing up as a teenager so as to be relevant today. And let me explain it in straight talk. Growing up, there was black, white, no shade of gray. My opinion was not asked, neither was it sought.
It did matter.
It didn't matter. So saying that, my default position is we are doing this because I've said. But then again, I celebrate raising critical thinkers, yet there's that natural. So for me, that is my reality. That I was raised in a certain way. That for me is my worldview. And now all of a sudden, I'm in a different space. So I just have to be alive to what is really the right thing or what is really just me and my ego and the way I was raised forcing through. So almost trying to always discover what's the true north. So that for me is hard to sum up. And it shows up in very many ways. Right from I've said something, do it now. Because growing up, if I was told something and I even blinked after I was told there was consequences, to even simple things like dad and mom were always number one in class. So if there's any grade that you feel is not up to par, there's no honest conversation that yes, there sometimes you'll struggle, maybe you need to put in more work because dad was and mom was always number one. So now I have to hold on and remind myself, hey, I wasn't number one, neither am I going to project that I was always number one. So it also means me stepping down from my high horse. But maybe Jackie.
That's powerful. You know, I relate a lot with you because many times, even my kids are not yet teenagers. I just feel like already with my eldest, there's a lot of negotiation already happening. The other time I lost it and she was like, but mommy, it can't always be what you want. I was like, slow down. Who is that parent? Yeah. Let's first be clear on who is who. And it's really hard because we parent. That's what we know. That's what we saw.
Yes.
And it shows up even as we are doing the parenting. And we are in different times and it's such a shift, such a change. I always feel like out of all these conversations I've been having on parenting, the work is on us. Ourselves much more than on them. Yeah. So thank you so much, Tito, for sharing.
Thank you.
I think for me, the biggest challenge or opportunity is finding the right balance. Because we want to be firm and fair, but we also want to raise boys who turn into mature men who are independent and who can operate without their parents. So those skills, we want them to build those skills in our home. We want to observe them, modeling certain values around being kind, being generous, being responsible. Those things start in the house. So if you're a parent, and moms of boys tend to do this a lot, you can emasculate your kids, your sons, because you're always in their face telling them what to do, sparing them consequences of choices they've made, or you're sparing them chores because they're telling you they are tired, who isn't tired? So some of those values, the character building needs to happen in the home. So I think for me, it's the right balance between allowing them space to have fun in the home, allowing them space to relax because they're also busy, with education and academics and sports. And so a typical weekend, the same way I've had a long week, the same way my husband has had a long week, is also the same way they've had a long week and they need downtime. But then also realizing that they have responsibilities. So just achieving that balance, I think, is critical so that then you're watching them evolve, you're modeling for them, because the kids, by the way, they don't listen to what you tell them. They watch what you do as parents. That's actually your biggest ministry. It's how we are kind to each other. It's how we relate to them. It's how we don't overreact when there are issues. It's how we model calm when there's a crisis in the house. So for me, it's the balance between, yes, what are we telling them? But also, what are we modeling? Because what kind of human beings are we raising? So yes, we want them to be grounded, want them to be godly, but we also want them to be real around what life looks like, so that tomorrow when dad and mom are not there, they can actually make the right independent decisions. They're not in a panic because there's no one to help them. They've been practicing decision making in the home. They've been practicing making the right choices. They've been navigating peer pressure, and we are watching what they're doing, and we are allowing them for some. And then we also affirm that this one you've done well. Hey, this one we think you have more potential. This one, and we keep talking with my husband. It's not about grades. It's about what's your potential. What has God put in you? So it's not about the A, but it's your capacity and the capacity God has put in you. And are you fully utilizing that? So because our son sometimes can tell us, oh, but my grades are good. What is the problem? Why should I? And say, no, it's not about the grades. It's about your behavior.
Yeah.
So being in tune, being consistent.
With those other.
Yes. So that then we bring up all-rounded human beings, that can relate to people, that are anchored, that know who their God is. Not their parents' God. Like they find God for themselves, and then the Holy Spirit will help them navigate, but then also in a real setting, because we are practicing Christians. So sometimes Christians, we don't act like we're Christians when we are under pressure. The kids watch that. So we also try and, talk to each other. Sometimes we step on each other. When we are at the dining table and I can see Tito is walking into a milestone in a conversation, I step on him, I'm like, retreat, that one.
Go there.
We know that if we go in hard, we lose the moment. And we've also learned not everything has to be solved right there and then. How do we, modeling is big. So we are not there. But let me tell you, we are learning.
It's a journey.
And every day, it feels like there's something new to learn. And then as soon as you've caught up on something, you feel like they've moved a step away. Now there's something else. But it's a joy, honestly, and there's so much grace that God has given us, and we are open. We learn every day. We share podcasts with each other around teenagers. Have you seen this one? I said, yeah, that's a good one. We're so open to learning and we don't try to pretend we have it perfectly. So we tell other parents, yes, this is our struggle today. This is what our son is going through. And, the more you talk, the more you realize that, honestly, we can extend grace to each other as parents, to other parents, by sharing, so that then people are learning as we go along.
That's why you're on the RelatePod. Your honesty and your insights, your journey is amazing. I am glad to actually be part of that journey with you guys and seeing the boys grow up. Thank you so much for gracing the Relate podcast today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I'm sure a lot of what you've shared will strike a chord or two with the listeners of the RelatePod. And personally, my biggest takeaway for me are those keywords: adaptability, the intentionality, and staying, learning and relearning. I think those have stayed with me. Yeah. So until next time, Tito and Jackie will be back. I am sure. They're going to be residents of the RelatePod. And if anything they've shared with you has resonated, please comment, share it. If you know another teenage parent going through it, share this episode with them and let them feel less alone. And you can find the RelatePod on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, on Spotify and Amazon. You can listen in, you can watch, whatever you feel like. And as we always end the podcast, living is loving. So stay connected, reach out to someone and be a vessel of love and care to them today. Until next time, goodbye.